Hi everyone, so on this video I thought I would bring you along to sew the signatures in to the journal that I'm working on. So this was the inside of the journal cover that I did the other day, which is now dried. I also did a video on the fake leather, so I covered the outside of the journal with it, just to the edges, which I'm going to put gilding on, and then on the spine I used some gilding flakes. So I just used some Fabri-Tac glue, gave it a rub, put the gilding flakes on, and then gave them a brush on just to give that a little bit of shimmer on the spine. I am going to sew my signatures in. There's 3 of them, and I do beaded spines. So I have my jar here. I have dismantled a load of bracelets, and I have a mix of beads to go with the colour scheme of this journal, which is the Nautical Voyager. So it's in a time of, say, pirates, and we've got mermaids involved, and that sort of theme we're going along with. So my signatures I have already put together. I have 3 that I've already folded and I've paper clipped. These are from some papers that I dyed the other day. Now I am going to put each one in a cardstock outer covering. I stained these up this morning and they've just been drying in the same sort of colours. I've used vintage photo around the edges just to age it all up, and I have folded 2, so I just fold them in half like so, and I use my bone tool to just go along the edge with and give it a sharper edge. Okay, so now I will pop one of these onto each of the signatures. Let's go that way. On these I will probably stamp on the covers or put a heading on it. I don't worry too much if my pages are slightly off at the edge. I'm not looking for it to be perfect, so long as it fits within my cover, then I'm happy at that. Okay, so I just paper clip those down again until we're ready to line them up with the journal. I'll just do the same with these. Again, just pop one onto the, this is the front of that one. Again, just line them up, paper clip them down again. I find myself the hardest part of doing a journal is sewing the signatures in, having them lined up right. So I like to get this done and then we're away. I always put my signatures in before I start decorating the cover, and I always start with the cover because that gives me a feel for what I want to put inside the journal once it's the cover's completed. So there are our 3 signatures done, and they are ready to be lined up in our journal. So I am going to put them in that order. So I start with the back ones. So this is the front of my book. I'll pop all 3 in. you can see they're quite a bit smaller than the cover, so I will centralise them there, approximately. Nothing has to be perfect. If you want it perfectly lined up, that's absolutely fine. I just like to do it by eye. This gives me, I've got space at the top, space at the bottom of the pages, and they all fit within the cover as well. So that is ideal. They sit, if you can see that, beautifully on the spine, not too crammed in, because this will be a chunky journal by the time I am finished. Okay, so now I'm going to mark up my journal. Let's use a Sharpie. So I want to mark up where these are going to go. This for me is the hardest part, I'll be honest. I do go by eye though. So you're going to be putting 3 holes in to sew them in. So you want one around the top, one around the middle, and one towards the bottom. Okay. So as you can see, I've marked the edge of my signatures, and also I've marked on the spine where the first row will be going. I'll now do the second row. Line your pages up roughly. And this wants to be approximately in the centre of your spine. Okay. Again, I do this by eye. You can measure. I just prefer doing it this way. And I will put the third hole in approximately there. Okay, so I've got my holes. I've got my signatures. Line them up. I've marked them, so I've got a rough guide of where I'm going to pierce them. So they are where they are going to sit. My dots line up. Okay. So first of all, I'm going to pierce the holes in the spine. I'll just use my little sharp tool. I did have another one that was retractable, but my glue was bunged up, so I used it to clear the glue and didn't clean it off before it dried, and now it's stuck, so that is no longer in use. Okay, so just push through. It's coming through the other side. You see that there? I make this hole quite noticeably big. Okay, just do the same with all of them. This makes it so much easier when you come to sew your signatures in. See it pushing through there. Again, the last three. So I've now got all my holes. Just coming from this side. I have glue all over that one now, so I just poke back through on this side just to make sure that I have a good clear hole when it comes to sewing in signatures. Just makes life easier. That is all. Okay, so that's the cover prepared. I'll just get the glue off these now. So now I'm going to put the holes through the signatures. This is the trickiest part, I think, of putting signatures into a book. Making sure that they all line up and that you push through all the pages. I have had failures with this and had to start them all again, so hopefully. Right, I'm going to start with the back pages, the last signatures that will be in the book. It's just easier to sew them in that way. So, okay, we have a mark. This is where we want to go through. Signatures are all folded. Okay, so keeping them as in line as you possibly can. I go on the this is what you could do with an extra pair of hands every time. I'm just going to mark that a little bit further around so I can see where I'm at. Okay. So I line my sharp tool on the inside. This is just the easiest way that I find to do this. There may be another way that people find it easier to go from the outside in. And then I push. This is where you just hope you hit the spot, which I have. Okay. So as I have two sharp tools, I leave that one in place and that holds them together, ready to do the other end. So I literally am doing this by eye. Okay, I think that's in the right place. And I push through from the centre pages. This is 15 pages of paper. There we go, I've got that one too. Okay, and now this is where I would use my third one. However, as it isn't working anymore, I'm going to pull that one out and leave the other in situ. So in total, each signature will be 30 pages when complete. So 15 pieces of paper making 30 pages. I'll push this one through and thankfully they have all lined up. Okay, So I'm going to sew this one in now to show you how I sew them in. Okay, so we'll move our paper clips out of the way. So this is the front of my book. I'm sewing into the back, so it's the last 3. Now I use embroidery thread to sew my signatures in. Some people used waxed cord, you can use string, but I just like the colours that you can use in the embroidery thread. I'm using a brown one just because it ties in with the pages. So I do a piece of thread that is double the length, just over double the length, the height of the book. So I do double it up and a little bit extra. Thread your needle. So you're going to start from the centre hole. Okay, so you go from the inside of the signature to the outside of the signature. Okay, then you go through your centre hole in your cover. Okay, and there we go. So that has gone through the centre hole of the cover. Now, because I do a beaded spine, this is where I will thread my beads on. So this thread is going to go into the top hole. So I need to thread my beads before I do that. I'm just going to choose random beads on this occasion. Sometimes I would follow a pattern. On this occasion, I'm just going to randomly choose some beads. Make sure that they fit over your needle. So every now and again you need to check that your beads don't go further than the gap that you have between the holes. I'm going to put a pearl on each one. Just because it's the ocean, nautical. So I'm checking. Right, I have a small space still for 1 or 2 more beads. Let's use some green beads. Sometimes the holes are too small. So always check that it goes down your needle, because before I've stacked them all onto my needle before pushing them down and found that after having about 6 or 7 on there it wouldn't fit. So okay, so I think there we are about. Okay, so that now is the right length. So I'm going to go back, make sure you go following the same line, the bottom hole at the top, you push your needle through, coming through there. Then we're going to go back through from the outside to the inside this time, the hole that we made at the top of the journal, and you've come inside. Pull your thread through. This is your centre piece. Do not lose this piece. Come straight down the centre of the signatures, and we're going to pop the needle through the bottom hole from the inside to the outside, and then following the same line into the bottom hole, coming out onto the spine, and again make sure you don't lose your thread, going to thread some beads on. You're following the same principle, so make sure that you don't put too many beads on, because otherwise it'll be really loose and baggy and it doesn't sit nice, and your signature will also be loose in your journal. Try and use beads that are going to lie flat or flattish on your journal. You can use chunky ones, a slightly chunky one there, but some of the different shaped beads don't always sit very well on a journal. Let's put one or two more, and then we're ready to thread it through. One more. Okay, so that's ready to go back through. To find the end of your cotton. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to go through the centre hole again on the same line into the journal. Okay. And then we're going to go through and your centre page, and to go through the centre hole that we first started with back into the journal. Now at this point, try not to thread the needle into the threads that have already come through. Pages have moved, so they're not all lined up this time. So if that is the case, just do a few pages at a time, making sure that you hit the hole. And there we go. And through. Okay, so now you'll have two ends. Okay, so I have one end on this side of the centerpiece and one end on the other side. You can give it a bit of a pull, so you're pulling your beads taut. Got some slackness in it there, so just gently tighten it up. Okay. So once you're happy that you've tightened them in enough, not overly tight because otherwise you'll start ripping into your paper. Okay, that is sitting nicely up against the spine. I've got a piece either side of that central piece, and I tie it in a knot over it. It holds it down and anchors it. So I do 1, 2, and then the third knot I tie the opposite way, and that just seems to hold it. That's all I do, 3 knots. These end pieces can be left in. I hang little charms off them, or I thread a few small beads onto it. just as a feature on the centerpiece. So that is there, our first signature sewn in. I just do exactly the same with the other two, and then your signatures are in your book and completed. I will complete these now, and then I will show you when they're done what the finished look is like. Okay, hope this has been helpful. Hope it's taught some of you how to do a beaded spine. It's a lovely finish, I think, on a book. Gives it some texture, gives it something different. If you've liked this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, leave me a comment. That would be fantastic. And I'll be with you again soon. Bye.